It's close to 40 days now since Israel launched its offensive against Hamas, and today they claimed a massive win against the terror organization by capturing both its parliament and its military police headquarters. Israeli government has released pictures of its soldiers from the Golani Brigade waving the Israeli and brigade flags inside the police headquarters in Gaza City. A similar picture was also released of the soldiers inside the Gaza parliament, located at the Omar al-Mukhtar street, right in the heart of Gaza. Israel says that this is enough proof that Hamas has now lost control over Gaza City. In fact, the country's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, said that there is no force of Hamas that's capable of stopping the IDF. And with the army's advance, terrorists are now fleeing south, and civilians are now down to looting Hamas bases since they have no confidence in their government. But the IDF's focus is not on the Hamas's terror infrastructure alone. Their crackdown on hospitals has drawn outraged cries from Doctors Without Borders, UN and Amnesty. In the last 1 month, several hospitals have been in the Israeli army's crosshairs. The IDF says that this is because hospitals are being used as fronts by the Hamas. These include the Rantisi Children's Hospital, where Israel claims to have unearthed tunnels and underground chambers where weapons and getaway vehicles were stored, and even people were kept as hostages. In fact, here is a report that the IDF has released from within the Rantisi Children's Hospital.
Went to the hospital with a video camera and personally documented more concrete evidence. The concrete evidence are that Hamas uses hospitals as an instrument of war. Underneath the hospital, in the basement, we found a Hamas command and control center, suicide bomb vests, grenades, AK-47 assault rifles, explosive devices, RPGs and other weapons, computers, money, etc. And we also found signs that indicate that Hamas held hostages here. This is currently under our investigation, but we also have intelligence that verifies it. Additionally, we found evidence that Hamas terrorists came back from the massacre on October 7th to this hospital, among others, after butchering Israelis in their homes, executing the innocent, murdering entire families, burning babies, burning young women alive, and uses this children's hospital, Rantisi, to hide.
I'm here in Gaza City. We are here next to a house of a terrorist. This is one of the senior terrorists who is the head of the operational naval operations that led the raids into Israel. His house is right next to a school. His house is 200 yards from the hospital of Rantisi. Next to his house, there is a tunnel. It's built with electricity. We first saw the solar panels, then the electricity goes here, and it goes down directly to the tunnel. Now you can see the tunnel. You can see the tunnel. We're now entering into the area of the hospital. I want to show you a room where we found all the gear, the operational gear of Hamas. Hamas is using hospitals, like we showed the evidence in Shifa Hospital, in other hospitals.
In fact, there are a number of hospitals which have been in the crosshairs of the IDF. The Shifa Hospital in the north, where the IDF claims that Hamas has built its control center, hosting the organization's leadership. They also released a 3D animation to this effect, which they claimed was based on intel. In fact, last week also saw heavy fighting outside the Al-Quds Hospital, in which 21 people were killed. Israel claims that those killed were Hamas terrorists who are firing at Israeli soldiers from within and around the hospital. In fact, let's look at the claims of the Al-Quds Hospital now. This is the Rantisi Children's Hospital. If we move on, we'll also talk about the Shifa Hospital and the Al-Quds Hospital, both of which have also seen shelling in the recent past. In fact, the IDF has now released a video showing a man firing an RPG at Israeli soldiers from the entrance of the hospital and then running inside. Let's take a look, in fact, at what this video actually claims to show. So this is the Al-Quds Hospital, outside which firing took place 3 days ago, and now the IDF claims that here is a man who is holding an RPG launcher, and they say that he had fired it at one of the Israeli tanks, and then he disappears inside the Al-Quds hospital. So that essentially is the claim, that there are people who are sheltering inside, there are Hamas terrorists who are sheltering inside, they come out onto the street, fire at the IDF, and immediately take shelter inside the hospital again. Yossi Zilberman, deputy spokesperson at the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is joining us now. Mr. Zilberman, I want to start by asking you, what is the concrete evidence? Let me, for example, talk first about the Shifa hospital. You released a 3D animation. The IDF released a 3D animation saying that there is a tunnel network inside. How could an entire network be built and nobody came to know?
That's a very good question. And the problem is that during the last almost 20 years, while Israel was out of the Gaza Strip, and I'll remind you, after Israel has withdrawn from the Gaza Strip, there was no Israeli presence, nor settlements or army in that time in the Gaza Strip, not only in Gaza City. And during that time, there was a lot of money invested in Gaza from different countries in the Middle East, in Europe. The money was invested in order for the Palestinians to have perhaps a brighter future, perhaps a better life. This is what we all strive for, at least in Israel. I'm sure that in India as well. And instead of investing this money in improving the life quality of the people of Gaza, the Hamas, their organization, took this money. And as you saw, I mean, you've watched the videos right now, they have invested lots of the money in, a lot of the money in the building of the very elaborated infrastructures of tunnels under Shifa Hospital. And as you've mentioned, and as the IDF spokesperson said, we have our intel, which is based on technology and also on other elements. So but we know... Considering,
Mr. Zilberman, considering that you keep such a close eye on what happens inside the Gaza Strip, if the Hamas had been building these tunnels underneath a hospital for 10 years, how did you not know of this activity? How did you not know?
First of all, there was always the hope, to some extent, that the situation will not deteriorate to the point that we are at. We have always thought, and this is why Israel has withdrawn from Gaza, that the minute that the Israeli army will not be present, the minute even where there are no Israeli villages in the Gaza Strip,
Okay, we will just try and fix the audio with Yossi Zilberman. I think we seem to be having a bit of an issue there. But also another audio has now been released by Israel, which claims to be a conversation between an Israeli government official and the official at Shifa Hospital talking about replenishing their resources. Let's listen in.
انت حكيت لي اليوم انه في عندك في قسم الولاده في عندك اطفال
خدك حضانه.
احنا جاهزين اي مساعده اذا بدك تنقل هذول الاطفال وهذول المرضى، احنا جاهزين اي مساعده. لو بجيب لك انكوبيتور وبحط لك اياهم في باب المستشفى بيعطيك مساعده؟
بيعطيني مساعدة. بس
حكيت لي انه في 37 اليوم صح؟
37 صحيح.
اوكي خليني اشوف ايش بقدر اعمل. غير الانكوبيتورز بدك كمان اشي غير
اي تنفس صناعي معهم، في كم طفل بدهم اي تنفس صناعي كمان واكسجين يكون موجود.
اوكي يعني قصدك 37 انكوبيتورز و37 اكسجين.
نعم، ولو جاء تنفس صناعي
4 نعم. للأطفال طيب أنا بشوف من طرفي كيف بقدر أساعد بالموضوع الانكوبيتورز والأكسجين.
وأنا وظيفتي كمدير مستشفى إني أحافظ على الجرحى والمرضى والأطفال، هاي وظيفتي في المستشفى وفقط.
وأنا بتصل فيك عشان أساعدك. أي شيء بعد كل الظروف الصعبة هاي اللي تحت إمكانياتي أنا راح أحاول أساعدك عشان نحمي الجرحى والعيانين والمصابين.
تمام، والطواقم الطبية أيضا.
طبعا.
والنازحين.
طبعا.
All right. In fact, let me go back now to Mr. Zilberman. Let me quote to you one of the doctors who is working at Al-Shifa. They are saying that your Israeli claims are an outlandish excuse and are only meant to starve the Gazans of the last refuge they have in the north of Gaza.
I think that we have all seen the proof that we're not talking, out of our imagination regarding the abuse of infrastructure and even hospitals. You've just shown the video from Rantisi Hospital, and we know of other hospitals, and Al-Quds Hospital. So it is nothing that we are inventing. That is almost a common knowledge that there are bases of Hamas inside of Shifa Hospital, above ground, and especially underground. So this is the main issue that we need to resolve in order to push forward and to move on with the attack in order to eliminate the threat of Hamas to our citizens. At the end of the day, this is our main goal, that Hamas would not be able to put another threat on the citizens of Israel, as it happened on the 7th of October, the massacre that caused the murder of more than 1,400 people.
Yossi Zilberman, even if there are Hamas terrorists inside the hospital, for the Rantisi Children's Hospital, for example, but you do know that there will be babies, there is the neonatal ICU there will be collateral damage. There will be children who will also be casualties. You're ready for that?
Listen, Israel is a country that is following international law. We're not a terror organization. This is why you are listening now to recordings of our men speaking to the heads of the hospital. We are actually literally giving incubators, mobile incubators to Shifa Hospital in order to move out the baby.
But my question is different. The fact is that life-saving equipment such as incubators have run out of fuel. Generators are not being run. As far as Shifa is concerned, 32 people, including 3 premature babies, have died in the past 3 days. Do you think all of this is brushed off as collateral damage? All right, we will just try and fix that audio with Yossi Zilberman again. But let me again take you to another report which was released by the IDF. There they are talking about a particular underground room that was discovered, where they say that a motorcycle was also found. There was a possibility. Let's play out that report, and then I'll go back to Yossi Zilberman. But if you could quickly finish your point. If you could quickly finish the point that you were making. I was quoting details of how 32 patients, including 3 premature babies, have died in the last 3 days.
I think that the casualties caused in Gaza are on Hamas. We need to understand that we are trying to avoid civilian casualties. This is exactly the difference between us and Hamas. We are not aiming at citizens. We're not aiming at civilians. Just a couple of days ago, the European Union issued a statement, a collective statement by all the foreign ministers, calling for Hamas to stop using hospitals and civilians as human shields. The world understands that. We are fighting a fierce terror organization that is not putting aside any effort in order to save itself. The people of Gaza are none of its interest. This is something that you need to understand once again. Even though they are perhaps both Palestinians, Hamas knew when they were going to cause this massacre on the 7th of October that it will reflect as well on the people of Gaza, and they simply did not care. And this is why we are trying to uproot Hamas from Gaza, and it is a very painful process, but we cannot allow that 1,400 people that were massacred, that this event will happen again. You have to understand, India is a vast country with more than 1.5 billion people in it. Israel is less than 10 million. When I'm telling people that 1,400 people were murdered and massacred, you need to understand that most of us know someone who got killed, murdered, raped, or been kidnapped to Gaza. This is the magnitude of this event to the state of Israel. And in order for us to give security and safety to our civilians, we need to eliminate the threat of Hamas from Gaza forever. And the cost will be painful, but we cannot get to the finish line without reaching this result.
All right, Yossi Zimmerman, thank you very much for speaking to us. There is a lot of attention right now on Israel, specifically on the issue of the hospitals. Remember, the last count says that at least 4 hospitals in Gaza are currently out of fuel and out of action. Thanks for speaking to us.